So the Springboks have just got themselves the victory over England, 29 points to 20. It was an extremely quick start in this game by both sides, seeing the early try of Ollie Slateholm, then answered straight back by Grant Williams, and it just kind of had that feel like it was going to go back and forth. Now, the first half, it flew by. It only took about 44 minutes to play the 40. Second half, it started to go a little bit slower, but overall, both sides physical in the forwards, quick with their backs, and I think that the kicking game was so crucial throughout this matchup. But in this review, we're going to be looking through at who scored the tries, who were the players who stepped up, and then also what is next for these two sides. So jumping straight into it, the try scorers. For the English, they managed to get themselves 2 tries in this game, the first of which for Ollie Slateholm. Like I mentioned, it came extremely early. Marcus Smith acting like he was going to go for the drop kick, then just pinning the ears back, getting it out wide to Slateholm, who's had a very impressive November internationals in terms of the tries that he's been able to score so far in November. But then we saw another try, and that was from Grant Williams, firing back with a pick and go round the side of the breakdown. He's got a lethal step, as he proved in this game. Cheslin Kolbe, he got himself 2 tries, and then there was also the try for the Springboks coming from Pieter-Steph du Toit, and that was a charge down after a charge down. You don't see that too often. Ebenetsebev managing to block the Jack Van Poortvliet kick. Then from there, Marcus Smith getting his hands on the ball, being charged down by Pieter-Steph du Toit, who overall I thought had a really strong game. In fact, many of these Springbok players were able to step up to that level that they needed to. Still a couple shaky-ish performances, I will say. But before that, of course, we did see another try from the English. That was for Sam Underhill, who had a good game in terms of getting into those breakdowns. But I think that's something that really separated these two sides at times throughout the 80 minutes were the kicks. England, they were very good at contesting when they kicked their own ball. Grant Williams, one criticism of his game that I would say was maybe putting a little bit too much depth on those kicks. The same can be said about Manie Libbok for when he was doing the up and unders, and it was just making it very hard to contest for the South African backline. Whereas England, Freddie Stewart at the back, with his defence aside, he was very good under the high ball, but then at the same time, he was slightly to blame for a couple of the Springboks tries being scored. So he had a very much 50-50 game, but Tommy Freeman, he was solid under the high ball, and at times we saw some great work from Cheslin Kolbe when it came to the high ball too. But also Kolbe, I mean, his stepping game throughout this match was phenomenal, scoring himself 2 tries, thoroughly deserved. I think that he'll be out on that right wing next week, although maybe Rassi completely throws another curveball and goes with something completely different up against the Welsh. But overall, a very entertaining game of rugby. Both of these sides throwing everything into it. England, they will be disappointed as that is now 5 losses in a row. South Africa, they are increasing that winning streak and looking to continue building it heading into next week as well. But players who stepped up, Ebenetsebev, once again, great game from that man. I thought Wilco Low in the starting lineup did very nicely for the South Africans as well. And then we saw Pieter-Steph du Toit very often throughout this matchup. Williams was solid. Dealendi and Creel, I'll be honest, this is probably the most quiet we've seen the Springboks midfield, but I mentioned about it during the stream as well. Something that England are extremely good at doing and sometimes don't get enough credit for is their ability to disrupt. They can really make it awkward for opposition, and we saw that time and time again in the breakdowns with Sam Underhill, with Ben Earl, just really trying to, if not anything else, annoy the Springboks and force them to be ill-disciplined. I mean, it was kind of working, because later on in the game we saw a lot of penalties against both sides, but in particular the Springboks, who had Gerhard Stennekamp sent to the bin. But what is next for these two sides? Next weekend, we will get to see Wales in action up against the Springboks. That is going to be a tough game and also a very unpredictable one when it comes to the lineup. And then on the other side of things, England have got Japan. Now, they're on a 5-match losing streak, like I mentioned, but the win that came for the English just before those 5 losses was actually up against the Japanese. So perhaps back on the winning track before the end of the year. But thank you all very much for tuning in to this very short review. Our next game that we are covering is starting in only a very short time. It's New Zealand versus France, so be sure to check out that stream as well. But thank you all very much for tuning in. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. and I will see you all for the next one.